let's look at 12 things on the Pioneer DJM-S11 that you need to know about, because these are going to blow your mind. This is the successor to the DJM-S9, 2-channel battle mixer. It's got your effects, it's got your paddles, it's got all the layout that you're used to, clean section down here, same at the front, pretty much the same at the back. You won't be surprised by this mixer other than the fact it's got a screen. We'll get onto that. But I've rarely come across a product that when we've dug a bit deeper, we've found so many things to talk about. So in this video, it's not our full review, it's just 12 things that you need to know about this right here, right now, just the juicy stuff. So let's get started. I'm going to use Serato because although this works with Rekordbox as well, Serato has got most of the cool functions that I'm going to talk to you about now, and Serato is what most people will use it with. It's for open format, scratch DJs, you know who you are if this is the mixer for you. So let's dive straight in. As always, if you enjoy this, please share, follow, like, do all that stuff so that we can keep bringing you videos just like this one. So the first point is that touch screen. It's got a big 4.3-inch touchscreen here. It's not multi-gesture, but it is Pioneer style touchscreen, so you can control stuff on here. You can see me controlling stuff there. It's really easy to use. They've got a little hamburger menu at the bottom, which always brings you back to this home screen. It's bright, really bright actually, slightly recessed. It's got the kind of plastic top that Pioneer prefers to glass. They say that when your hands are wet, this is just easier to use, sweaty and so on. So it's a preference thing. We think it works fine. So this is the touch screen then. So we've got all kinds of functions. We can browse our music from here. We can mess around with our effects from here. We've got MIDI control over various parts of Serato DJ from here. I'll talk to you a bit more about some of these things later on. We've got a touch effects, an XY effects pad. We've also got access instantly to our waveforms and to decks 3 and 4. Decks 3 and 4. Yes, this has got more than 2 decks on it. We'll get onto that in a minute though. So it's got a touch screen. It's really useful. It's not just a me too. There's a lot of stuff on here you just couldn't do. In fact, most of the stuff on here you couldn't do without that touch screen. So it's a big step forward for Pioneer with this style of mixer. So point 1 is the touch screen. Point 2, it's got fewer quirks. Immediately out the box you can see it. The EQs and the filters and the trims all line up properly. They didn't in the old one. The load button is big now. It's a little thing, but a bigger button. And it means that when you go over there to press load, you don't accidentally hit the back button. They used to be the same size. Little things, but they matter. The pads are bigger, and they're now set out with the easier controller style way of choosing what happens on the pads. There's actually 12 things you can do with the pads now, which is cool. But they also are independent. So I could have loop roll on there, hot cue on there, and that's cool. You couldn't do that with the old pads, so there's a big leap forward there. There's a quirk really. I mean, why couldn't you have hot cues and samples or whatever? Didn't make sense. Now it's been fixed. Slightly deeper, but basically it's the same mixer, but better functionally. So they've ironed out some quirks. That's our second point. So our third point, I've already teased it. You can control more than 2 decks with this. Let's go back to here and find out how. So let me click deck 3 here. So there's certain screens which let you do different things with the decks. I'm going to start with the simple screen. I'm going to click browse. I can now browse through my library, pick a track. Let's load that track there onto deck number 2 by pressing deck 3 by pressing deck 3 load. You can see it's loaded on the screen there. And I can now play this track from here, mute it. I can jump to hot cue 1. I haven't actually got hot cue 1 set, so it set it for me. Now I can jump back to hot cue 1 by pressing that there. Set a 4-beat loop instantly on that track. I've got the sync on there as well. So that's a simple setting for that. But I can now go to mashup. In fact, no, let's not do mashup. Let's do hot cues. So now we've got 8 hot cues. I can set them from here. I can't delete them from here, strangely, as far as I can see, but you've got your hot cues there as well. I've got mixer, so on mixer, I've got my channel fader, got my trim, no EQs though. I'll be picky, I wanted to see some EQs on there. But this screen here, mashup, is the most fun screen of them. So here I can lock the key, again I've got a sync button here, but I've also got a couple of other functions which we're going to move on to now, which are going to be our points 4 and 5. So point 4 is, I've got this thing called deck move, and this will take the track from deck 2 and put it on deck 3. Now I've already got a track loaded on deck 3, so let's go to deck 4 instead. Let's just stop deck 3 playing there. Let's go to deck 4, and let's go to that mashup screen. So by pressing deck move, it will move the track that's currently on deck 1 to deck 4. This is deck 1. Got this track playing away here. and I'll press deck move. Let's have a crossfader in the middle. Now look on the screen. That track has gone now from deck 1 and is now playing on deck 4. That's why I put the crossfaders in the middle, because deck 1 was there. I can stop that. That's not needed anymore. It's flipped it over to the outside deck, the secondary deck on the other side. So why would you want to do that? Well, one big reason why you want to do that is, let's say you've got 2 tracks playing on decks, basically 1 and 2. The numbering system always gets me because I'm so used to using other systems, but basically your main decks are 1 and 2 in Serato, and your outside decks are 3 and 4. So you've got 1 and 3 this side, 2 and 4 this side. Let's say you've got a track playing here and another track playing here, and this is an a cappella, and they're working fine together, but you want to just quickly get that one off that deck so you can mix something else in. Well, you just flip it from deck 1 to deck 4, and it puts it over there on the same side of the crossfader as the one that's already playing. They're both playing away together now, fine. And now you've freed up this deck to mix something else in. Really useful. That deck move functions from deck 1 to 4, and the other move on deck 3, the move function here, is from deck 2 to 3. So it basically moves it to the outside decks for you. But it gets better than that, because our next point is that you can actually lock the decks together. And this is so, so cool. So let me give you an example. So I've got 2 tracks playing away here. I've got 1 there and 1 there. Get those in sync. Okay, so let's say that those 2 tracks are going. I really like those 2 tracks. That's an a cappella, that's an instrumental, it's a great mashup, I'm loving it, my crowd are loving it, but I want to do something else on this deck. So you already know that I can throw this one over to the outside deck over here. So let's do that first. Let's deck move that track. And actually I've moved it to the other deck over here, but that's okay. The point is they're both running together now. So deck 3 over here now has the track that was running over here on deck 2. They're both running together. But if I press dual deck, look at my screen. I'm controlling those 2 decks together. I've actually got a loop on that third deck there, but isn't that cool? 2 decks controlled by 1 piece of vinyl. It's not only that, filters, EQs, even the hot cues, although if I press hot cue 1, it'll jump to hot cue 1 on both of those decks. They're basically ganged together. So I could, in theory, beat juggle with all 4 decks by having 2 ganged together there and 2 ganged together there. It's pretty cool the way it works. It takes a little bit of time to get your head around it, around the fact that if something's on deck 1 here, it goes to the outside deck over here, and deck 2 there goes to the outside deck over here. But it does make sense when you think about it, because in order to control them together, you're going to want them on the same side of the crossfader, if you like, and you can see them controlling together in the software next to each other as well. Dual deck is a really good addition. It's unique. They've had to obviously do work in the software to make that happen. I think that's a really good function. Number 6 is our touch effects, which I can get to there. And let's start that track playing. In the settings here, I've got 2 preset touch effects. Let's look at echo and filter first. This is the level for the effect. Up and down is the filter, and left and right, how quickly it echoes. Pretty cool, right? I can then go to roll and pitch, which is the other preset, which is loop, roll and pitch, as you would expect. I can lock it on by pressing hold. Go back to echo and filter. It's now going to lock there. And I can also choose my own. So I can choose by using the beat effects here what I want as the horizontal effect. So I could have flanger as the horizontal effect, and the vertical effect will be whatever these filters are set to. And you can set the color effects elsewhere in the system here. I can decide what color effect I have there. So I can have dub echo there, for instance, as that one. So now going back into touch effects, I've now got dub echo as the vertical and flanger as the horizontal. And you've got all the other combinations of those you can use as well. That's the XY pads. I love it. That's number 6 in our 12 things you need to know. How are you enjoying these, by the way? Do let us know underneath what you think about these. Whether there's something here that you think has been done really well, something that's blown your mind, something you think they haven't added, do let us know in the comments. Right, let's move on to the second half then. Number 7, there's a USB hub at the back, which means a USB-A hub, 2 USBs at the back. It means you can plug in 2 Rane 12s, of course. You could also plug in the XP2 and any other controllers that you want to use can be plugged in there. It just saves carrying a MIDI hub around, and it says, sorry, a USB hub around. It saves all that kind of like fraught messing around when you're trying to swap DJs over and stuff with using different equipment. It's just a lot easier, and it saves tying up your increasingly fewer, let's be honest, USB sockets on your computer. 1 USB from your computer to here, and you can use those for your other equipment. So it's a small addition, but it's a nice one. Number 8 in the MIDI settings for Serato is Silent Q. It's down here at the bottom on screen B of the MIDI settings. What does Silent Q do for us? Well, if you are a DVS user who uses vinyl, you'll know probably what I'm talking about here. I want to start this track playing from that cue point. You've got that slurring as it comes to speed, right? You could, from the cue point, you could hold the track and drop it in. But on CDJs or on controllers, you just press your cue point and it works, don't you? But the trouble is here, you've got the DVS, you've got the turntable, you've got the slurring as it speeds up. Silent Q fixes all that. With Silent Q, I can press Silent Q on that channel and I can start that playing and nothing will happen. It's muted, you can see it on the screen. Then when I'm ready, I can press my cue point. It triggers instantly. Silent Q is a very simple thing, but it's an awesome thing to have. I've known DJs to put cue points in the silence at the end of their tracks, just so they can get the track up to speed before then pressing another cue point. That fixes all of that. But this has got Silent Q on steroids, because this has got a pad function. I'm going to talk to you a bit more about the pad functions, not all of them, because the pad functions are mainly Serato functions. So you've got hot cue, roll, save loop, sampler, pitch play, slicer loop, saved flip, scratch bank. Scratch bank. We'll come on to that one because that is new, but the rest of them are on every Serato controller that's ever been made, well, on every Pro one. So we won't cover them all, but we will cover some of these things. But anyway, it's on the pads. It's on the pads the way this works. So on steroids, what do I mean by that? Well, there's a silent cue function that lets you use all the cue points. How does that work? Well, we double tap hot cue and we get this red hot cue. And then these cues are now, you look at the deck, they're muted. Only when I touch them do they turn on. So if I start that deck playing now, silent cue, and I can press this, there you go, it started playing from that cue point. But if I take my hand off, it stops again. These are now momentary cues. This is like using finger drumming, or again, this is something that people who use controllers know about, but it's never been on DVS because you've got this moving thing here that makes it impossible. What's happening is the track's still playing underneath, but I can jump back to my cue points and trigger them like this. And when I'm ready to start, just tap hot cue again with my hand on the cue point, and it'll play on from there. 2 ways of doing silent cues there. They're both really cool, especially the second one. It's really creative that you can do that. Right. There is beat jump on here as well. If I double tap either roll or save loop, I get to beat jump. And beat jump is indicated by these lights down here. So I can now jump through the track by the amount that is set by these two. Cycling through the beat jump amounts there on the screen. And I'm going to jump forward. So I'm jumping forward through the track and back through the track using beat jump. As I say, it's on the middle two, just double tap it, you get this down here. At the top, you still have what you're set to, save loops or roll. And you can turn that off entirely in the software, just turn off beat jump and then you don't get that. But it's good to have it. So beat jump is there as well. And while we're talking about this, you can also have combination, because this is a combination effectively. You've got roll on the top and you've got beat jump on the bottom. You can customize these. That is cool. And there's no going into settings and dragging and stuff. If I want to have hot cues and save loops going together, I just hold hot cue, press save loop. Look, they're both lit up. I've now got hot cues at the top, save loops at the bottom, and it works with them all. It's really damn cool that. You can very quickly set things up how you want it, flip between them, and get your first 4 hot cues, your first 4 save loops in that example, instantly on the same pads. So if something comes to your head and you think, oh, I need both of those at once, It's just a simple tap of a button to do it. So some really interesting stuff going on down here with these. By the way, to access the secondary functions, you hold down Shift and then tap them. You can change that in the settings to tapping them 4 times, but Shift is the right way to do that, I'd say. Don't want to be sat there tapping anything 4 times, I wouldn't say. Right, so there's a little look at the beat jump controls, the combo controls down here on the pads. You can, we're on to number 10 now, you can control everything in Serato, more or less, with just the mixer. No need for any external DVS, HID, anything. And that's pretty cool. You probably won't want to DJ like that unless you're heading down the beach with your mixer on your back and your laptop and, you know, being really cool. You probably don't want to DJ like that. It's a bit fiddly, but you can. And again, the reason that that's possible is you can use touch MIDI to control basically everything about the decks. I've already shown you the transport controls about decks 1 and 2, and I've already shown you how to control decks 3 and 4 to do pretty much everything in decks 3 and 4 as well. So there's an easy way of doing that. It's great that you can. And if you're in internal mode, you've even got transport controls on here as well. So double tapping here is going to bring up transport controls. I'm in internal mode now. Play, pause, cue, there. I've also got sync. I've also got key lock. I've also got nudge and pitch shift. And sorry, tempo slider here. So you can control everything on the laptop. How cool is that? Across all 4 decks on a 2-channel mixer. Pretty mind-blowing stuff. So number 11, there's 2 new echoes on this, and they're both pretty cool. I'll try and explain them quickly to you. Echo number 1 has actually appeared below the line. The line that says we don't want anything below here because we're scratch DJs and we're doing all this stuff. It must be good for Pioneer to have dared put it below the line. And they have. It's called Smooth Echo, it's here, and it is good. How does Smooth Echo work? Well, if I turn Smooth Echo on by holding it down, we get this Smooth Echo control here, which I can use to show you. We can control the number of beats it echoes. I'll set it to half a beat. We can control the level of the Smooth Echo, how loud it is. And we can also have the number of beats to trigger by when you're using the crossfader. I'm just going to set that to 1 beat. That won't make any sense to you right now, but it will in a minute. And finally, at the top here, what triggers it. So you've got crossfader, hot cue, silent cue, gate cue, load, even track loading. I'll explain why that's interesting in a minute. And your channel faders. Right, what does it do? Well, with Smooth Echo on, if I turn something off using the controls we just looked at, like for instance the crossfader or the channel fader, it will echo that out. So let's get a track playing here. Get back to relative mode there so that we can hear that. Track playing there. Let's turn it off. Instant echo out. It's basically an instant echo out button. Saves you setting echo there and turning it on. It's got a little bit of high pass filter on it to keep it clean. Works on the crossfader as well. But the cool thing about this is that if you're scratching and you are using the crossfader and you finish your scratch routine and you push the crossfader over and let it play for a beat, it'll kick in. But otherwise it won't kick in. It's turned on but it won't kick in, because as long as you are not playing for more than a beat with that crossfader open, which you're not when you're scratching, you're moving backwards and forwards, you're doing your stuff, then it will respect that. It knows you're scratching, it knows you don't want any echo on, it stays off. It's only when that fader is open for 1 full beat of just the track playing that it thinks, end of routine, switch that on. And you can change that here. So if you're doing some laconic slow scratching, you can have it a bit longer. If you're doing some very fast scratching and you want it to kick in quicker, you can have it lower as well. Or you can just set it to 0. So that only works on the crossfader, but it's a subtlety to that. It basically saves you having to finish your routine and then have echo set there and quickly throw the paddle on to echo out that routine as you close the routine off. Now, the other echo I wanted to show you is a new one that you can set up here. You can change the beat effects. You can change the Serato effects as well. You've got hardware, software effects here. You can change the beat effects to what you want. And one of the things you can change them to is something called ducking echo. Ducking echo. So let's go into the effects section here and let's have a look. I'm going to set, in fact I've already done it. I've set this echo here to ducking echo here. And this, by the way, you can set all your effects here. You can select from all your effects everywhere. So ducking echo is there. All right, so here I've got a high pass filter. This is similar to, there's a high pass filter automatically on the Smooth Echo. You can't change it. But here I can. I can decide if I want to roll off the low frequencies to make this echo a little bit more useful if I'm doing it over other stuff. But I'm going to set it to 0. I'm going to turn that off. And that's it. The ducking echo is set there now. So here I can set how quickly things cycle with the beat effects, as you'll know if you've used any DJ mixer before. So I'm going to set this to 16 beats. I'm going to set the level to full. Let's just get that track playing again over here. And I'm going to turn the ducking echo on. I've got it set to echo there. Listen carefully. That's locked on. We've had at least 4 bars there, 16 beats. No echo, right? And that's because it's a ducking echo. It'll only kick in when you duck or turn the channel off. That channel's not playing now. Want proof? That's not playing. What the ducking echo has done is loop or echo 4 bars or 16 beats, because that's what it's set to. And because the level is set to full, that's never going to stop. It's going to go on forever. Now that's useful enough, isn't it? To know you can quickly dial that in. But it gets better because these are hardware effects. So I could be DJing here without Serato. This could be vinyl and that would still be looping. So I could be doing an all vinyl set, realize that track's running out, quickly stick a loop on the end of it just by using the ducking echo, which is why I wanted to draw your attention to that. There's 22 hardware effects here. They're all great, but that's the one I wanted to draw your attention to here in these 12 things, because that one and the Smooth Echo are pretty innovative, I would say, and I like them. So there you go. That's point 11, 2 great new echoes. And point 12 is another new function on Serato. Can you believe it? When you plug in the S11, look at Serato. Look at this little thing here. This is a new function. And that's why this is our number 12, because there's a new thing in Serato, and quite a big new thing that you can only get when you plug the S11 into it. If I unplug the S11, that little icon disappears. It's called Scratch Bank. And it is a place for you to load your favorite scratch sounds, samples, scratch sentences. It's like a sample bank, but a little bit different. Let me explain why. So in all these slots here, I've just doubled up a track here. I've got in these slots a track loaded, but I can set different places that I want out of all my cue points that I want to trigger from all these slots. So although this is one track, and that could be a sample set, those slots will trigger from different cue points. And I could also have different tracks in all the slots. There's 32 different sounds, whatever. By pressing Scratch Bank here, Shift and Scratch Bank, here's what's available to me. If I am playing a track on this deck and I press this button here, it will immediately load the track or the sample or the sound that is set on that Scratch Bank slot. So there you go, that's loaded and it's playing immediately. Now that could have been a scratch sound, of course, and I'm immediately in and scratching. So it's a very quick way, and there you go, there's another one loaded. It's a very quick way of loading something to a deck, but I can go back to what I was playing before by pressing Shift at any button, and it'll return to what was playing before I did that. And that's pretty cool, because let me give you a use case. You're DJing with this track here. It's on the main deck, playing away. And you've lined up a track on this deck that you want to play next. But then you decide you want to do some scratching. Well, by setting Scratch Bank here, I can quickly load onto this deck. It's currently DDJT 90s jacking. I can quickly load something, mix it in, do my scratch stuff, quickly press Shift and any button. I'm back to the track I had loaded there before, ready to mix in next. And it's just easier than having to think, where's that scratch sound I need? Well, you don't need to think about that. They're all loaded on your banks anyway. And then where can I load it? I've already lined this up. Oh, I know, I'll load it onto deck 4. Right, let's go to deck 4. Let's go to the library and load it. You don't have to do any of that. You just have to go to the pads, press the one you want, do your scratch thing, shift any of the pads and you're back. It's just a nice, easy way of quickly loading stuff. In fact, I could see scratch DJs planning whole routines where they're using the pads to load everything, never touching browse, never going to the library, because it's such an easy way of loading tracks, and you've got 32 of them in your banks here, so you can move through your four banks and move through your set that way. I really think we're going to see that happening. Right, that's the 12 things. Well, we've literally had this for, I've been playing with it for about 5 hours now. That's what jumps out at me from it at this point in time. As I said, it's not our full review that's coming. We're going to give you a proper full review when we've had weeks, if not months on this. So you watch out for that. It's going to be definitive. But for now, I just want to give you a few things that I wasn't so keen on first playing. So the first thing is pretty obvious, really. This library is okay, especially if you've got your sets pre-planned and you're just moving track for track for track through it. It is quite easy to sort by various things, and then when you're within the different folders, you can sort by BPM and key and so on, and you can even change the way it looks. So I haven't shown you any of the settings here, but in the settings panel here, we can change the way this looks quite easily. So I can head into our browse display. I can make it 2 lines of text. I can make the font a bit bigger, and that's cool. So now when I head back to here, we've got, it's a lot bigger, right? You see that? So there's no search on there, for instance. You're going to have to do that there. If you're looking for requests you weren't thinking about, you're going to have to do that over there. There was actually one thing I forgot to show you on here. Let me show you this quickly now. And that is that in the display, it's got a pretty cool day mode. Look at that. We're now looking at daytime waveforms and so on. Great for barbecues and that kind of thing. So that was something that I meant to show you and I didn't. So let's get that one done now. Let's get out of day mode and back to what we were talking about. Okay, yeah, so I think that's all right. It's okay, but it's never going to be on a screen that size brilliant, is it? Just part of what you get. When you're in this Deck 3 and 4 mode here, I mentioned it earlier, there's nowhere in these screens, like the mixer screen's got the channel fader and the trim and that's it. There's nowhere for the EQs. And I can see why, because where they're going to go, but I'd like to have seen EQs in there somehow. It's just for completion's sake, to be able to quickly EQ the tracks on Decks 3 and 4, I think it'd be pretty cool. The build quality of this is the same as the S9. It's a bit better, thicker paint, better crossfader, but it's still plastic, still got a plastic base and so on. Some people will like that. It's quite light compared to like the Rane mixers, the 70 and the 72, and compared to the Nexus 2, the 900 Nexus 2, for instance. So it's easy to put in a backpack and carry around with you. You know, these are not the kind of mixers you find everywhere you go. You want to take your own mixer? Well, it's lighter, but it's an expensive mixer. It's plastic. You're going to have a view on that, but it's worth pointing that out. And finally, it's not really about the mixer, but it is not concern, but it's something that you need to know about. If you are a user, I've got them down here, but I'm not going to pull one out just to hold it up. If you're a user of the brand new, at the time of recording this, Pioneer CDJ 3000s, they won't work in HID mode with Serato with this mixer right now. And there's even limitations on the 2000s apparently. I'd like to see that fixed. I mean, it's going to get fixed. It's not a question of if, but when. I'd like to see that fixed because increasingly DJs aren't using turntables. Increasingly DJs, open format DJs, are happy to use CDJs, but you're going to want all this functionality. So I want this functionality. I want to see the CDJ 3000s working sooner rather than later properly with this mixer. So just a few things to bear in mind there, a few little things that aren't quite right as of now, or that you might want to consider before shelling out for one of these. Overall though, we love it. I mean, you can see some of the stuff you can do on this is absolutely mind-blowing. The next thing you'll see from us is a performance video where we'll go through in a real performance beginning to end so many of the features on here, but it won't just be showing off. We'll actually show you the features we're using and give you a tutorial of what we're doing on the decks so you can understand how we're using the functions of this to do that performance. And then, as I say, after we've had a good couple of months playing with this, both myself and Steve, who is the real target person for this in our company, he's our scratch DJ, we will get together and we'll get you our proper hands-on full review of this, having spent that extra time with it. If you've got thoughts on any of the things you've seen here, we'd love to hear underneath what you think of this. Is it a worthy successor? Have you got the Rane mixer? Is there stuff on this you prefer to the Rane? Were you thinking of buying the Rane mixer but you're going to buy this, or do you think that Rane have got it right and Pioneer hasn't? Whatever your views on this, do let us know underneath. I especially want to know what you think about the new functions and the new stuff in Serato. So the comments are open for you to do that. Meanwhile, all that's left for me to do is say please do share, follow and like if you've enjoyed it, and get good, get out there and make the moment. And I'll see you again very soon.